also starting about the definition of starting from the definition of language. The definition of language is all about that it is a source of exchanging the ideas, discourse, thoughts, opinions. But how a language helps in transferring and exchanging these thoughts and opinions and beliefs? Basically, the language comprises of words and sentences that are the meaningful components of the language that helps a person to exchange basically the ideas between the people and helps them in communication. So in this way, if a communication is done through language, it means that through the words and sentences, the message that is transferred with the help of words and sentences, that communication will be called linguistic communication. It means that that type of communication that is done with the help of language. But there is another communication that is done without language, that is called non-linguistic communication. Like, for example, a person also passes the message or exchange the message by giving gestures, postures, like raising the eyebrows, passing a smile, or giving hand movements. That is also a part of communication, but that is not a linguistic communication. But there is another communication that is done without language, that is called non-linguistic communication. Like, for example, a person also passes the message or exchange the message by giving gestures, postures, like raising the eyebrows, passing a smile, or giving hand movements. That is also a part of communication, but that is not a linguist. If we talk about non-linguistic communication, so animals also do non-linguistic communication, is they utter cries and the unwanted or specific sounds, like dog barks and horse snorts. Like, these sounds are also associated with animals, and this way they also communicate, but that sounds are not meaningful, or they are not well structured, and these sounds does not constitute a proper meaning. That's why this proves that the language is only associated with human beings, or language is a humanoid property. Now, as it is already discussed that language is human property, it means that human possess the abilities to make the language meaningful. So what are basically those properties that make the language meaningful? Basically, human beings are endowed with the two basic skills that makes the language meaningful. The first property is double articulation, and the second one is syntax. And double articulation, basically the basic unit of language is sound, that are further divided into vowels and consonants, that would be discussed in our next video. But talking about the property that makes the language meaningful, that is double articulation. It means that there is sound like sa, e, and ta, and if we combine these three sounds, it makes sit. But if we change a single sound, like from sit we make it suit, the single difference in the sound makes it a totally different meaning, or totally changes the meaning of a word. This is what helps a language to become meaningful. Now, coming towards the second property of the language that makes it meaningful, or that makes it able to communicate, is syntax. And basically the syntax is the use of meaningful components of language, like words and sentences, that how these words and sentences helps in communication. As we know that words are the basic part of our vocabulary, and by the help of these words and sentences, we can communicate about a single thing, or we can talk about a single thing or concept in several ways. So this also helps in making communication more decorative and more effective.